Yeah.
Um, all right, we are live, and I am here with Stefani Bardin. Stephanie, we met in person about a month ago at the Fancy Food Show,
Yeah.
and I just started talking with you and was fascinated with your work, both at NYU, but also as your at your innovation consultancy on Stock. And I'm excited to chat with you today about leveraging AI, generative AI, for human-centered design and innovation in food.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm so happy to be here. For those of you new to the Spoon, this is sort of my pitch for you all. I think it's an amazing, amazing platform. And I think it's a really valuable tool. Just a little background on me. I am a professor. I'm also an artist, and I've spent the last 12 years building out curriculum related to food and technology. So I taught between two departments, or I teach between two departments. ITP, the Interactive Telecommunications Program at Tisch. They call it the Department of the Recently Possible, so whatever tech you can think of. And then the graduate PhD Food Studies program. And so I spent 10 years building out curriculum to think about how technology and food come together, but more explicitly, how to use food to tell stories. And I'm here today to talk to you about generative AI in the context of innovation in food. So, as Michael mentioned, I have a consultancy called Unstuck. I do some fractional work with companies to help them think differently about the work that they do. And so, a couple years ago, I started using Midjourney, which I know Mike uses, to iterate on some renderings I was using for a project. And I thought it was a really, really interesting tool. So I went back to school and I studied AI, so particularly generative AI. So I learned machine learning, I learned LLMs, I went back and did data and analysis, and I started to see the value that AI can bring to companies. And sort of one of my provisos is that I don't think that AI is the be all and end all, right? I think it's a really valuable tool. And in the context of co-intelligence, I think it's really, really important to think of it as a co-pilot, right? So co-intelligence is a book by this guy, Ethan Mollick. I highly, highly, highly recommend. All right, so I'm gonna get started. I'm going to, yeah.
And before we start, just some housekeeping for those of you watching. If you want to ask questions along the way, feel free to drop them into the comments. I'm going to kind of act as Stephanie's assistant during the presentation, and I might actually have questions along the way, or I want something clarified from my own understanding. And if you do as well, feel free to drop those. And if it makes sense, we'll ask Stephanie. We want to make this somewhat interactive, and so that's what I am really excited about. Let's make this an interactive workshop. If you want to say hi in the comments, drop where you're dialing in from. Feel free to do that as well. So, all right, Stephanie, take it away.
All right, great. Yeah, please say hi and please feel free to interrupt at any time to ask questions or add information as well. All right, so here we go. So can you see it?
I can see it.
Great. Awesome. All right, so let me just get this ready and here we go. So I'm a believer in teaching people how to innovate. I think it's an iterative practice, right? And I think, as I said, Gen I can be a really great tool to pair with evolving human ingenuity. You're looking at a picture of sacred geometry. And I use this as a way to talk about how, in this field, the combination of physics and art and design, mathematics, spirituality, this is how I see AI. It's a composite of inputs and knowledge required, right? It's not just single portals. So the run of the show for today is going to go like this, because I'm going to go through a lot of things. We're going to talk about generative AI. I'm going to give you some definitions. I'm going to talk about the transformer. I'm going to talk about some types of innovation, a method that I particularly like called the Kaizen method, and one of its biggest proponents, Toyota. I'm going to talk about generative AI for hard and soft innovation, talk a little bit about LLMs, large language models, and some examples in the food space. And then if there's time, we're going to do some demos inside of, these are the three platforms that I use the most, Gen AI, which is part of OpenAI, ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity. All right. So big question, what is generative AI, right? So a good definition, it's a type of artificial intelligence that creates new content by learning patterns from existing data. And so Mike and I have been talking a little bit about neural networks and like what is the difference, right? So neural networks is the kind of AI that we have seen for a very long time. It's predictive. So examples would be Siri, some like that Netflix algorithm that tells you what to watch next. That is a very predictive, very kind of sequential type of artificial intelligence. But things started to change in 2017 when a group of Google employees created something called the Transformer. The Transformer it's basically a deep learning architecture that allows information to be absorbed, right, by these large language models, right, or by these, machines to, not this machine, but our computers. So instead of absorbing information sequentially, right, like that predictive AI that I talked about, it allowed the machine to look at an entire page of text and to absorb it within a context. So it had a way better perspective. They call this attention. And so if you think about it from a human standpoint, the more information you know about something, the deeper insights you can have, the more knowledge base that you have. And so this transformer literally transformed AI and gave birth to generative AI, which is why all of a sudden AI is everywhere and seems everywhere because it is. And so one of the questions I have, is it overhyped? Yes. In a lot of ways, it's overhyped. The truth is, AI is definitely taking some jobs, but it's not that different when digital photography came after analog photography. And I think something to think about is, there's also a lot of fear mongering, but also people who adapted from analog to digital photography did a really good job of transitioning. And I think that's the same for AI. I mean, it's not going away. Is it going to be thinking, on its own? Is it going to be sentient? I think we have a long way to go before we get there. But also, is it underhyped? And I would say yes. This is an image from an article that Scott Galloway wrote entitled Corporate Ozempic. And in this piece, he makes a really interesting correlation between the GLP-1 drugs and AI. But basically, it's companies have, over the past couple of years, been firing a lot of people, but managing to be more productive, but not talking about why. And it looks like a lot of these companies are, in fact, using AI to be more productive. And I think Galloway makes a really great case that AI shouldn't be used to replace employees. It should actually be used to augment productivity. And I think that's where AI has the opportunity to help companies actually be more innovative. And so I'm going to just talk about innovation for a minute and the way that I see innovation from an interesting perspective of soft innovation and hard innovation. And so Toyota uses a very interesting type of innovation strategy. And I read a really interesting Harvard Business Review study that talked about this method that they use that I had never heard before, but really aligned with the way that I think about how you can iterate and move forward in your company. And it's called the Kaizen method. And the word Kaizen means change for good. And there are two types of innovation in here. And the first one is hard innovation. And so hard innovation is like that Taylorism model of finding the right process for the right job. So it's tech, it's infrastructure, it's processes. And Toyota has really nailed it when it comes to this Taylorism. They really know how to do things. In fact, I just learned recently that most of the cars that they make are made to order. So there isn't surplus parts, there isn't surplus labor. They've really learned how to streamline. But they do something interesting with sort of this productivity and this leftover time, is that they do something called soft innovation. And soft innovation is company culture. And like, first of all, I just have to say, this is like the dumbest ass image, but I don't know a good image for a company culture. But company culture, particularly for Toyota, is human focused. It's organizational rather than large scale capital intensive changes. And so it's incremental changes that happen over time. And what they do, which is the really fascinating part, is that they cultivate these incremental changes from the employees themselves, so that the employees are the ones who actually know what changes can be made. And so, the managers and the higher ups actually accept and implement and integrate these changes in order to be way more effective and to cut costs. But the upside is that employees feel way more invested in the company. They feel seen, they feel heard, and they have a greater alignment and allegiance to the company because they're part of the process in very tangible ways. Another company that's doing this kind of innovation is Nestle. So Nestle has this open channel, and it's an internal crowdsourcing program that they launched in 2019. They don't talk about it as soft innovation, but it clearly it hits every single check mark for soft innovation. So since 2019, over 9,000 employees have submitted concepts. 6,000 came from the Nestle headquarters, the Nestle companies here located in the US. 23 innovative projects have been launched, and it generated $200 million in additional revenue for Nestle. And so for me, I see AI as a way, or generative AI as a way to reduce a lot of the busy work and day-to-day work, right? That sort of Taylorism, right? It's a 21st century Taylorism, and be able to open up space for employees to be more creative and be more innovative. So I'm sure a lot of you have been just inundated from emails of we're AI powered, we're AI forward. It's this sort of very, very ham-fisted way of putting AI at the center of your business, right? And, I think people should be putting on the brakes a little bit with AI, right? So I think leading with unique goals and hurdles, right? So when I work with companies, it's like, don't think about AI. Like, what are your goals and what are your hurdles first? And then you can really push you can push forward using AI in a really strategic and a really specific way, right? So don't lead with AI unless you're using it in really novel ways. And so Mike and the Spoon reported on this a few weeks ago. And Mike, maybe you want to talk a little bit about what you call AI washing?
Yeah, it's this. I mean, I've just watched over the past 2 years how we've seen a number of companies, and I'm sure people listening in have seen this as well. Startups who previously may have not made any mention of AI, may have been something like a blockchain startup or an alternative protein startup, and all of a sudden they're leading with AI as their key differentiator and all their marketing, et cetera. And I think it makes sense. But I just heard the term AI washing. We've all probably heard the term greenwashing, where corporations basically try to over exaggerate their ability to, or their efforts around sustainability. I think we're seeing an exaggeration as well around AI as a key differentiator, when in reality, they might be just doing something like licensing OpenAI or using, using ChatGPT or whatever.
100%.
Not to say that they shouldn't be talking about this, but oftentimes I think it maybe can be misleading. And part of the problem, I think what you're getting at also, is when you talked about the difference between, old school AI and new AIs, a lot of people are still trying to understand all these different things. It's complicated. People are not computer scientists, so it's easy to basically
Yes.
promote this and get the sheen of AI. So I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
rambling at this point, but
No, please. No, but it's super valuable. And I think that that's the thing, right? That I think that people not really understanding how it works and why it works. It's this black box, right? That people don't know how to use it. I mean, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA actually had the gall to say, kids shouldn't learn how to code because we at NVIDIA provide, we can do all the coding for you. And I think that's really problematic, because I think that we do not want these overlords having control over all of these processes, right? And so the more we know, just as citizens, as consumers, as business operators, the more we can use the technology to benefit us and not to benefit these companies. So I think it's kind of a combination, and it's also not obvious. It's not obvious how this stuff works, which is why I think understanding the transformer becomes really interesting and why AI seems all over the place.
Yeah. And I don't think it's binary either. Innovation and creativity
No.
around more organic and analog methods versus these tools. I mean, I was walking along my waterfront this weekend, and there was this sketch fest, and I was just thinking about all these people sketching with physical analog tools, like looking at the water in front of them, is doing this different, tapping into a different part of their brain, being very organically creative versus someone typing in a prompt into Midjourney. Both of those things are probably really interesting,
Yes.
and they don't,
Yeah.
it's not like binary, but I just think that
No.
it's just different parts of
No.
your being that you're tapping into.
I think you're right, and I think that non-binary is really important. I also have to say that, like, technology is not reliable. I mean, the platforms which I'll talk about are not reliable. They're not deterministic, but you have a power outage. If you don't know how to draw or if you don't know how to write and you have a presentation that you have to do, like, what are you going to do? So I think it goes back to this co-piloting as opposed to, thinking about it as the be all and end all, right? And that's why I think like people need to put the brakes on in a lot of ways. So now I'm going to just show you some of the big players who are using generative AI. And this is how they are talking about how they're using generative AI. And I think something else to think about too from a company perspective is that, I've heard from a lot of smaller companies is like, yeah, we don't have the money to integrate all of this, all of this generative AI. And I think that you don't need to have a big company, you don't need to have big bandwidth, and you don't need a lot of money to implement this. You can do full company overhauls, which is what a lot of the companies that I'm going to show you have the capacity and have the budgets to do it. But the beauty of this new generative AI technology is that it can provide the same or similar outputs for both parties. So you can use generative AI for recipe development and testing, right? And this is something that IBM is doing. And they're using it to accelerate recipe creation. So the thing about this transformer is that it can analyze vast data sets of ingredients, flavors, and preferences and just spit out lots of stuff, right? It's that computational brute force that allows it to create very, very quickly. Another thing that it can do is quality control and assurance, right? And so Mars has been using it to analyze production line data and ensuring consistency. And Mike actually pointed me to an article that talked about how Mars is using generative AI to generate like 50 new product ideas a day. And I think the question is, well, at first I would say yes, that is 100% possible. I would say the second thing is, how many of those products are go to market? And I think something that you can use generative AI to do is to help you be predictive in some of these things. So like, yeah, like, if you have 50 ideas, that's great, but how many of them can actually be implemented? And the good news is that AI can actually, these platforms can actually help you with some of the analytics and can actually help you think about, how does this integrate into how our factory is already, or co-packers are already, fulfilling our orders and things like that. Another way is market research and consumer insights, right? And so Coca-Cola has been using it to analyze social media, reviews, and sales data for very quick and actionable insights. I'm going to do a demo if there's time later about something that I like to do, which is scraping the internet for information or posts from uh, consumers and from individuals who are responding to articles. I feel like the opinion part, the like, comment section in Instagram, in articles, anywhere that you see a comment section is like a whole place to mine data. And you can upload that data into these GPTs and it will help you gain insight. Because I think a lot of the insight in a lot of focus groups, I think people try to please the people who are running these groups. And that's where I think generative AI can maybe get closer to a little bit more of an authentic response using people's comments that are uploaded to all of these platforms. Another one is content creation for marketing. And so Mondelez is making personalized marketing content at scale. And that's something we can talk about too, right? That everybody has different entry points, right, for products. you have different demographics, different price points, different, ways of doing things. And I think that it's a way to utilize the different personas that the company or that the computer can embody. I just saw a comment. Can somebody repeat that again? I think it was about imagery related to packaging. Is that true? I just
Um,
saw it float up in front of me.
yeah, well, Carlos had a comment that he says he uses an AR. Well, he asked basically if food companies are using AI art programs to get ideas, and if they're doing that today, because he uses his own program to generate ideas. And he's just wondering if people are doing that in companies today.
Yes, 100%. And so there's something that like I actually didn't put into this talk, obviously, and I might say obviously, I mean explicitly, is sort of the ethics kind of involved. There's ethics, there's output, and I actually have some examples of some product generation that I can show you in a few minutes. But to address the question now, um, so these models, all of them, so ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, they were all trained on all data that is on the internet. Anything, the whole corpus of data that is uploadable is what these models have been trained on. And a lot of times this information was used without the permission of artists, of researchers. So I think the New York Times is suing Microsoft for for theft, right? Intellectual property theft. So I think I think companies are trying to find the right way to get ideas using these technologies and not be subject to lawsuits, because that is also a problem. And I'll talk about how you can do that privately in a way that will, relieve you of any kind of legal threat. It's a really good point and really good question.
Does maybe using like a Mid Journey or a Dolly from an image generation standpoint, maybe it serves as your first draft, but like it shouldn't serve as your
Yeah,
outright like, hey, this is going to be my packaging.
100%. And you'll see why too, right? Like, so first of all, there's like there's like an ethical gray area of profiting off of somebody else's work who's not being paid, right? Because the artist's work that the model was trained on, right? The Chat GPT and Claude and Midjourney, they're not getting paid, right? So there's that issue. There's also kind of this, I call it the AI glow, and it's like the glow of like you can look at something and you can be pretty sure that it was generated by AI. Like it's not,
Yeah.
I don't think it's achieved this one-to-one yet. But to your point, Mike, like 100%. I think it is a phenomenal tool for like pink drafts, red drafts, like all of that stuff. And that's how I use it.
I wonder if the I totally agree with you. When I look at like a Mid Journey photo, like, oh, that's a Mid Journey photo. And
Yeah.
when I look at a recipe, it used to be a recipe generated by ChatGPT. It was like, oh, this has a good chance of being bad. So I will say the improvement seems it's not just linear. It's actually it's exponential improvement. I feel like so maybe
Yeah.
a year from now you won't be able to tell because like you'll make this look like a natural human drawing as like in your prompt. I do want to
Yeah.
have this question from Sandy. So she going back to our talk about IP and LLMs training on existing IP out there. She was
Mm-hmm.
asking, do you think there will be more governance around AI in the future?
Oh, 100%. I have a really good friend who's a lawyer, cybersecurity AI expert, and they're trying to put together protocols. And I think part of it is that they're trying to land on what is doable. So if you look at, so like, part of it is intellectual property, right? So, I'll talk about this later, but you don't ever want to upload your IP to these public platforms because it becomes, into the public sphere. And if you're ever filing a patent or, you could lose that possibility. So these companies, so OpenAI and Anthropic, are all trying to put into, into their bylaws and into the contracts what what is doable, right? What they're responsible for, what is the burden for you as the user, what is the burden for them as the company. And the truth is, and this is what's really kind of, well, not kind of, very frustrating, is that these things change daily. You have to go in daily and be like, what are my options? How am I covered? I'm helping somebody come up with a novel game idea. And every day he goes in to look at what what the agreement is around governance, and it's shifting. So to your question, I think it's, for now, it's a little bit mercurial until there's an agreed upon language. But again, it's also hard because, as you said, Mike, the stuff is changing on the daily exponentially. But I think my final answer would just be, there are people really trying to gain governance around this. So there are some superheroes trying to do this. All right, so back to supply chain optimization. So PepsiCo has been using it for demand forecasting, inventory management, logistics planning, and efficiency. I personally think that supply chain is like one of the best ways to use generative AI. I think there's just so many inputs that will help you arrive at data that is super, super useful and super helpful in planning and logistics, especially if you're sitting on data around that kind of stuff. So label and packaging design, which I'll show you some examples, but Nestle is multiple design iterations based on specific trends and specifications. So I'm going to just take a break real quick just to give you an idea of LLMs, and I'll come back to some of this generative AI stuff. But an LLM is a deep learning architecture, or deep learning model of learning. So an LLM is able to take a lot of information in, process it, and spit out responses, spit out new information, right? So that neural network stuff that we talked about, the Siri, very predictive, right? Grammarly, like you know exactly what you're getting and what the change will be. The LLMs are a little bit different, right? So Anthropic, as I said, OpenAI, they are training on data to give you a variety of different outputs. And I think it's important to just very quickly and high level give you the different kinds of output and the different types of data. So there are two different types of LLM models. One is a supervised learning model and one is unsupervised learning. So a supervised learning model is the deterministic one, where you're looking for very specific outcomes. So you're analyzing data, you're looking how to optimize your supply chain. That is a very, very specified outcome for an LLM. Something that is unsupervised is where you feed it a bunch of data and you ask it to do some dot connecting for you, or to uncover things that we don't have the computational brute force in our brains, or it will just take a really, really long time to do. And that is unsupervised. And that's where I think a lot of the novel AI is being used, because you can build a private model. It's going to cost a little bit of money, but you can build a private model that trains only on your company's data and the data that you put in. So you don't run the risk of somebody else stealing your ideas. You don't run the risk of training on other people's things. And you can be really clear and controlled about what you feed into these models. And I'm going to show you just a couple of examples of companies who are using these proprietary LLMs. So this is a company called Brightseed. They're a pioneer in biosciences. And what they do is they use artificial intelligence to find compounds, bioactives, that are in nature that can help restore human health. So like an example of a bioactive would be like polyphenols or resveratrol or lycopene. And so they have this platform called Forager AI that identifies these compounds, and it does it really, really, really fast. And so they say that it takes the discovery, this is what Brightseed says, that it takes the discovery and the validation process and it moves it from years into months. And that they've identified 40 times more plant compounds than what has previously been documented in published literature. They're also now working with ocean spray, which I think is super interesting, to uncover compounds in cranberries that haven't been discovered yet. This is one of my favorite companies using proprietary AI learning language models. This is Climax Cheese Company. So it's founded by an astrophysicist, and he uses machine learning frameworks to identify craveability compounds in plant-based ingredients. And so these craveability compounds have been used to create plant-based cheese. I use this example because I have tasted this cheese and it's freaking delicious. It is good for it's good for cheese and it's incredible for plant-based cheese. And it's just a very novel way. I mean, this is a company that is really leading with AI. There are companies in Belgium who are turning to AI to make beer taste even better, and that they're using a combination of taste tests, and they're using an algorithm that will look for optimal flavor compounds, not dissimilar to Climax, in beer to craft, pun intended, craft beer that is more desirable based on surveys they've done about what people want their beer to taste like, right? And this is just sort of a heat map of how these technologies work and sort of what is a sensory category versus what the source is, right? And it's just sort of a screenshot of what this LLM is doing. But at the end of the day, data is power, right? So I was saying that unsupervised and supervised learning, the data that you train your models on has to be good data. What do I mean by good data? Clean data, labeled data, right? There's that 80s phrase, garbage in, garbage out. And the same thing still applies. If you feed garbage, unlabeled, stuff that is all over the place, stuff that's not organized, or stuff that's not, viable to the question that you're asking, the results are going to be problematic. So it's not just the data, but it's also knowing what to put in, how to put it in, what to look for. And so one of my teaching methods is something called the Socratic method, which is opposite of the professorial method, right? So the professorial method is the students are these empty-headed vessels, and I'm supposed to fill their empty-headed with everything I know. And I think it's kind of a BS way to teach. I prefer the Socratic method. The Socratic method is way more about asking and answering questions. And so I learn from my students learn from me, and we both grow in the process because we learn how to ask better questions. And I would say 1,000% without a doubt that knowing how to ask generative AI the right questions is key to getting the right output, right? Like there's courses, right? I studied prompt engineering. The way to ask a question and what to ask it is going to really impact what your outputs will be. So just like this is sort of my public service announcement. Regarding your tax or financial information, proprietary data, personal stuff, legal documents, do not upload that into the public AI. Just don't do that. Anything that you would never show to a stranger, do not show to AI. So that was my little PSA. But I want to just go back also just for a second to this data is power and asking the right questions. So, this is a very quick kind of demo, but you can really go deep into how to treat your AI as, like, I call it this irrationally exuberant intern, right? Like I know you've all typed into AI and it gives you like 10 pages of stuff that you're just like, what are you even talking about? But thinking of it as a co-pilot to help you really drive down to the specifics of what it is you're looking for and where you need the help. So some ways that I think that generative AI can be helpful, right? This is like low level stuff. In the same way that you do not want to outsource your, legal work to an AI platform. It's really good for low level tasks, right? That customer insight stuff from the comments that I mentioned, Instagrams and articles, like data scraping. It's really good for analysis around that. It's really good for uploading articles to synthesize. That is like one of my favorite uses, right? I'm just an information junkie. I don't have time to read everything that I want. And you can upload, PDFs to these models and it'll synthesize it for you. And then the best part is that you can ask it questions. You can also get different insights based on different personas you use when you're asking the questions. It's excellent for research. If I don't have time, Perplexity is a really good program for that. They give you references. It's excellent. Lots of academics use this as a really great research tool. It's very good at data analysis. OpenAI has a plugin that I use, and if there's time, I can do a demo. And so the data and analysis demo will actually generate charts for you and infographics. They're not like amazing, but as Mike said, it's a really good first pass to kind of look at, like, you're doing, presentations or pitches. It's a really good source of like thinking about how can you tell a story with data, right? So thinking of AI as your storytelling partner. It's really good for confidential information memos, right? For mergers and acquisition deals, right? Again, non-proprietary information, but it does a lot of the legwork when you're creating these sims, right? Like, you don't want to put the financial information in, but you definitely can look at what is the competitive landscape, and it really just makes it easy to put together deals using these platforms. It's excellent for cross-functional communication. Oh my God. Like, you have somebody in a different department and you don't really understand what they do, understandably, but you can read about it and you can get an understanding of what they do. So you have way more, impactful conversations, and you have way more productive conversations because you become closer to speaking each other's language. Prepping for client meetings, you can do some insights, you can do some research. It's like, again, it's that, like, exuberant assistant that you send, like, find me all this information on our competitor, find me all this information on our partner, that sort of thing. And then lastly, the rapid prototyping, which was the earlier question, right? This like rapid prototyping. So I'm just going to show you some demos that I've done, not live. And then if there's time, we'll do a quick live demo. So I did an engagement with a company, and it was a speculative design, future-proofing workshop. And the idea was like thinking up new products, right? And so the pitch for this product was this. Well, it was this. Can you create packaging for frozen, par-baked, mini powdered donuts using an updated 1970s branding aesthetic? It should also include sustainable packaging, an organic logo, and please name this product and put the name on the packages. So, all right, that's a mouthful, but like, that's the specificity that you want in order to get specific results. And I did this in February, and this is what I got. Not bad, right? It's got that, I call it that AI tinge, right? That AI glow. But it's not bad. And you'll see, and this is something that Mike and I have been talking about, is that like the language is terrible, right? Like the text is terrible. And it's basically because,
It
yeah,
misspells
Mike,
everything. I feel like it never
everything.
spells the words right.
Well, it
It
got
bugs me.
organic right and frozen. But yes, and to, and to Mike's point too about like the iterative capability of it, I did it. I plugged in the exact same. This is DALL-E, by the way, so part of OpenAI. I plugged the exact same prompt, and I did this in June, right? And this is what I got. Okay. And then this was last June, same prompt, right? So you're getting like different ideas. And again, it's like, oh, it's the difference between a bag and a box, right? Like, there's just all of these different things that maybe will spark something in that prototyping space. This is mid-July, okay? And notice too, the names are different, right? Like, it's giving you, I'm asking it, Nature's Mini Delights. I think the like retro dough is my favorite so far. I don't know if y'all have opinions, but that's my favorite. And then I changed the prompt a little bit, right? So here's like, I altered a little bit. I'm just going to kind of like zoom into the revised prompt. I don't know if you can see my little cursor, but it's like, that might appear to older Gen Xers using a current branding aesthetic. And so this is what we got: nostalgia bites, right? And if you'll notice, the language is a little better. Like, it's a tiny bit better, right? It's still sucky, but it's a tiny bit better. And there's just so many ways that you can use generative AI that I think it's really coming at it, not with AI first, but like, what are my goals? What are my problems? What are the obstacles? What do I want to achieve? And then you can figure out, how do I co-pilot with this, technology to help me move forward?
Can you real quickly explain for folks who are newer the term
Hmm.
of Copilot? Because I think the problem with that is I think Microsoft tends maybe co-opted it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
like
So yeah, no,
I oftentimes think of the
yeah,
Copilot as the little guy on my shoulder who's assisting me through my day, almost like a virtual assistant. But how would you
yes,
describe like a Copilot?
yes. I think you're right. I mean, it's so funny. I'm so not a Microsoft person. I'm like Apple 100%. I'm like always forget about Copilot. But I think I mentioned earlier on Ethan Mollick uses the term co-intelligence, right? And that it's a way to work together. So there's an example that I use a lot to talk about this. So um, Gary Kasparov in the 70s or 80s, I guess, got his butt kicked by Deep Blue, which was the AI chess machine, right? So Gary Kasparov was the best chess player in the world. He got his butt kicked. But what he did, what I think was interesting, is he actually, and not a lot of people know this because I did not know this till very recently, he went in and started studying AI and sort of seeing like, well, what is it that I don't know, or what is it that it knows that I don't know? And he created something called Total Chess, I think is the name. And he entered, so Total Chess is a composite of human ingenuity and the computational brute force of AI. And he entered this hybrid into chess competitions, where these chess competitions, you could play against a human, you can play against this hybrid, which was new, or you can play against full-on AI. And the victor in every match where AI and humans were paired, they were the victors. So this composite, this co-intelligence, is better than humans on their own and better than AI on their own. And I think that, like, I don't know that that's like 100% true for everything, but I think if you want to think about a dynamic, that this co-intelligence, that it actually, you know, you have to write an email, and it's like sometimes starting stuff is really hard, but you can type into Chat GPT, like, write me an email for a prospective client that, focuses on this. And then like 90% of it'll be garbage because it's so janky, but like there'll be something in the line and be like, okay, go. Like I have this entry point and I have this place where I can start.
First drafts, outlines, great tool
100%.
for it.
Yes. So this is my like, thank you. That's me, Unstuck Innovation. I'm gonna get out of this for a second because I'm gonna do some live demos of stuff. If
And
that
while you're
sounds
doing
okay to
that,
you, Mike.
can I ask some questions from the audience while you're doing that?
Oh my God, yes.
So Nicole had a good question specific to a vertical, and she asked, where do you think the food service and hospitality industry could benefit most from AI? And do you have any examples of that?
Wait, can you say it again? I'm such a bad multitasker.
Oh, no, no problem. Where do you think the food service and hospitality industry could benefit
Yeah,
most from AI? Do you
yeah.
have any examples?
Yeah, actually, it's so funny. I'm a huge proponent of food service hospitality. So I think scheduling. So I think that like I know that there are some platforms that like do scheduling, like you have to like figure out everybody's schedule. But I have done some demos where you can kind of plug in like meeting times. Like Joe can't meet on Wednesdays and Fridays. Mike can meet on Thursdays. Stephanie can't meet on Wednesdays, or the like things that take weeks to do. And it can really, really do that. A, cheaper if you don't want to pay for the software, and B, I think like so much more quickly. I think hospitality can also benefit from gathering information. Maybe this is a little bit ethical question, but gathering information on potential clients coming into the restaurant, right? Like people who are dining in your establishment. I think it can be helpful in looking for novel ingredients. I think it can be helpful in recipe development. I think that there's a lot of talk about sustainability in the food world and in the restaurant world. And I do a lot of work with sustainability. And I think a lot of times people are always looking to like, I want to use this really expensive ingredient, so I have to charge more. And it's like, yes, like usually, like, especially for sourced ingredients, organic, free range, that sort of thing. But if you can think about ways to drive down costs in other areas, like there may be a more efficient way to order your napkins. There may be a more efficient way to dispose of your trash. I think that like AI can kind of go into these corners that you're not thinking about and help you cut costs in ways that aren't in your line of vision.
Great.
Okay, so all right, since I can't multitask, let me let's get up to my chat GPT. All right, so let's do, all right, share. All right, so I'm just going to show you so you can see my thing. So you can see this tab, data and data analyst, but I am going to actually go back in and just go into chat GPT, close my library, and you can see that I'm in chat GPT 4. So chat GPT 4 is the paying version. The 4.0 mini, I'm pretty sure is free. The legacy model, GPT-4 is free. So I pay 20 bucks a month. And so what happens is I get like faster speed, and it's supposed to be a little bit more robust. All right, so what I'm gonna do is since we don't have a ton of time, I'm gonna take a whole bunch of prompts and drop it in right here. So y'all can see this. So I'm going to say, can you synthesize this article into a short synopsis using bullet points? Can you then synthesize the comments on the article and look for the top 5 trends? And then in a few sentences, what does this say about consumer behavior? Finally, is there a kind of gap between what the article says about consumer behavior versus what is being said in the comments? Okay, so that is 3 questions. And so what I'm doing now is I'm going to upload desktop. Where's my desktop? So I'm going to, here's my spoon articles. So I'm going to upload this one, which is, what does your grocery cart say about you? The New York Times did an article about receipts for basically how companies have been, or sorry, how individuals shop, right? And so how do they shop for groceries, and what does their receipt say? And then I went into the comment section of this New York Times article for the 500 comments. I scraped it and I uploaded it as a PDF, right? So is that clear? Did I make that clear, Mike?
Yeah. I like that
Okay.
it's
So
multimodal. Like you can use the
oh,
various inputs, like your own text input, you're uploading PDFs.
yep.
And so I feel like the inputs are getting much more flexible on these interfaces.
100%. All right. So now I am going to have it do its thing. And so
While you're doing that, real
arrow
quickly,
down.
Stephanie
Yeah.
wants to know: Did you use Dolly for that image generation for the donut?
Oh yeah,
prototype?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. So here's the article synopsis. All right. So let's just go back here. So the main points: variety in grocery shopping, influence of, I've read it, so like it's pretty spot on, right? I mean, I know many of you have not read it possibly, but it gives you like, these are the main points, right? Oops. And then it goes to the top trends from the comments. So the influence of store proximity, right? So the emphasis on, the emphasis on fresh and organics, right? So many of the comments highlight the preference for fresh and organics foods. Budget and time management, shoppers are looking for deals, right? This is all from the comments. Shopping habits in the comments range from frequent small trips. There's a wide range of dietary preferences, right? And then I wanted to know, like, what are some behavioral insights? So the comments reflect a diverse spectrum. There's a clear preference for fresh organic. Shoppers' choices are shaped by convenience, proximity to stores. There's so many things. And this is what's interesting, right? Here's the gap analysis between what the article focused on and what the comments focused on. So the article provided a narrative on individual shopping habits, whereas the comments reveal a broader picture of a less, of a larger sample size than I think they did like 6 individuals across the United States, from Alaska to California, like all over the place. And you can continue to keep asking it questions. You can also like go back in and you can rephrase the question. So like, you don't like that answer, you can go back in and edit it. Like you hate it and you want to start completely over, so you can edit it, right? And then it'll spit out a whole bunch of new stuff at the end. You can also be like, try again, regenerate. So you can take the same prompt and it'll give you a whole bunch of stuff. And what you're looking at, by the way, I always like to show the details. So this is like for the coders, this is the code of how it's thinking. This is actually the behind the scenes code. So it uses Python, which is a coding language, to actually analyze what's going on. And you can, so for the computer scientist, right? Like you don't need to be a computer scientist to use any of this, but computer scientists use it for code. It's a pretty good code checker. Like it checks for errors. It's pretty good at generating code. It's pretty good at, testing code and stuff like that. But again, you just don't want your information that is proprietary. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into, let's do the data and analysis. Oops, no. Let's go here, and then let's go into data analyst. And so I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go into this. I'm gonna do this. I think I need to copy the whole thing. Let me go back in. So there's a lot of copy and pasting. So I'm gonna go back into my thing here. And I'm going to go into data analyst. I'm going to go here.
Is data analyst your own trained?
No, it's a plugin.
Version? It's a plugin. No, okay.
It's a total plugin that's made by, so I'm going to upload my comments again. And then I'm going to upload from my desktop, spoon article.
So while you're doing this, while people who don't know, you can actually get plugins for ChatGPT and other LLMs to do more specific things. Like this is like, hey, let's analyze some data. That's a plugin for ChatGPT. Yes. Okay.
100%. All right. So I just want to get my final, I just think it's faster than all of my typos. So this is my last little prompt. So, right. So now I'm asking it in this data analyst, right? So you can see that it's up here, right? I'm just going to hide all this noise. So that's my data analyst. And so now I'm going to ask it to do this. I'm going to stop it. Sorry. I'm going to go back in and edit it because I hit send. And then here we go. Can you create a graph? So now I'm going to hit send. I'm not going to hit send. Yay. Okay.
You're doing pretty good for a live demo. It's been going pretty well so far.
Yeah, I know. I'm just waiting for somebody in New Jersey to turn on their lights so my internet goes out. Let's just do it again. Okay. And then I'm going to do this again. I'm just going to upload from the computer, what's your grocery? Boom. And then I'm going to do the other one. Downloads, comments. Okay.
Oh, I saw a chart.
All right. Yeah. Oh, I guess I did it. Let me just do it from scratch so it's a little cleaner. So yeah. And so the thing
Emma,
about
Emma,
this
Emma
is
wants to know.
yeah.
I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Emma asks, okay. How did you get the plugin in? So is that something you can to easily add a plugin? I think that's what she's asking.
100%. And I can show you while this is happening. So if you go into here, so see where it says explore GPTs. So you can explore GPTs. So you can look for writing plugins. You can look for productivity plugins. You can look for research and analysis plugins. And so some of these are not made by the OpenAI team. These are ones, think of it sort of like the App Store. These are apps that get uploaded.
Apps for AI.
Exactly. So education, lifestyle. Like one thing I haven't talked about, because this is sort of a very personal thing, it's a really good like personal assistant, like travel plans and stuff like that. It's super good for that. All right, I'm going to close this and let's just see.
Carlos
okay.
Says you can make your own GPT. I'll quit interrupting you. I apologize.
Yeah, Carlos, no, it's fine. I'm happy to be interrupted. Yes, you can totally make your own GPT if you have that skill set, Carlos. So like, this is just a very quick, and I actually went back up to the earlier one. So differences in consumer behavior versus the article versus the comment, right? So affluence and representation, health versus convenience, economic factors. Like, again, like it's a very quick and dirty example, but you can change the colors. You can say, can you make this a pie chart? You can say sometimes, and it's gotten so much better since I've used it, sometimes you can't read, it'll like really like, put in a ton of data that you can't read, but you can just change the XY axis. It's kind of amazing. And then you can download it, right? So you can download the chart as a PNG, and you have that PNG. I'm looking at it now, which you can't see, but I'll share my screen so you can just it's just a PNG of that file.
That's great.
Yeah.
Where did the hour go though? Like we can
Oh my God.
ask a few more questions.
Okay.
I
good.
think that some of my own questions are, and if anyone else has any questions, last minute questions for Stefani, feel free to drop them in. I feel like so much of the usage of AI tools is happening on people's personal work productivity flows. Maybe not necessarily outside of kind of the more traditional, hey, this is a dictated from the top down corporate usage. Yes. Let's create our own AI. So many people are using their own. I asked in the chat, what are people's favorite tools? I love Fathom. For people who don't use Fathom, it's a great transcription tool. It's free. I can't read my own writing anymore because it's atrophied so bad, but Fathom transcribes a call and then it bulletizes it. It's fantastic. But it feels so. Are a lot of folks tools that they're using for AI today their own personal ones that they're using outside of like the corporate, top down? Here's your Word suite. Here's your Microsoft suite. People are finding them themselves.
I'm just responding to all the comments. I had it turned off.
That's great. Yeah,
I'm so glad I had it turned off because I get so distracted. But these are awesome questions. Yes. How do I scrape? Honestly, I'm going to do this faster. So scraping is actually like cut and paste. Like I scroll, there are tools that will do it, but I just think it's faster to like just go in and go screen grab. You can do like you can actually also, here's what's so incredible. You can do like a screenshot, upload that screenshot to GPT and have it send you out a PDF to then upload back in. Sometimes it'll look at the screenshot. The screenshot is just not as reliable, I think, as the data points of the PDF. It has a tougher time reading images than it does like lines of text, and it's tokenized.
That is so cool.
Cooking assistants, like I think it's awesome because it's, you can ask it like, oh man, like I made biscuits and they didn't rise. Like, oh, did you check the expiration date of your baking soda or your baking powder? Like you just forget stuff. Again, it's that like, who is Iron Man's assistant? Is it Jasper?
I think that sounds right.
Come on. Yeah. Come on, nerds. Unite, please.
It's not like Alexa.
It's not Jasper. It's something. Yeah. But it's that thing where, yes. And I think, Sandy, to your point, yeah, the overthinking.
Jarvis.
I hear you on it's Jarvis. Thank you, Jasper. Don't tell my partner. He'll kill me. But yeah, like it's this overthinking, like I'm afraid, it's scary, and it's not for the like low level day-to-day, how can I get through my pile faster? Because my goal is to get people to innovate more. And I think we just don't have a lot of the time. And this can be a tool to give you time and to assist.
Well, we are about 1 minute away. I want to take these questions and comments, almost send them back to everyone in like the follow up. Cause like one of the things I find so valuable is just the comments. This session that you did, Stefani, and people listening in will be available. So we will follow up with a link to the archive for folks who want to watch it. And before we go, Stefani, where can people connect with you? Find out more with you. And by the way, feel free to drop like your LinkedIn. I can do it as well. Drop your LinkedIn into the chat. Other folks, if they want to drop their LinkedIn in the chat, feel free to do that as well. But where can people find out more about you?
So you can find out definitely on LinkedIn. I'm not as good as I should be. I'm working on that. Unstuckinnovation.com is the best place to find me. And you can read about what I do and you can talk to me. And I'm happy to talk to people. I love, love, love this community that I am very new to. but really, really want to start interacting with you all more.
I drop your LinkedIn, and for some reason, every time
Thank
I drop a
you.
comment, it does it 4 times. I apologize, everyone. I think it's because I'm the host and I'm plugged into all these feeds. But Steffi, this has been fantastic. I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Your professorial ability to distribute knowledge to your students via, is it the Socratic method where you're not just pouring information into our heads? I feel like we made it somewhat interactive. I thought it was great.
I hope so. Thank you all. Thanks, Mike, so much for the opportunity. And thank you, everybody, for your time.
This has been great. All right, everyone. We will talk to you all soon. Have a great day. And I think we're